it's easier to keep her head down. She looks at you strange when you say there's hope. That's how rebellions work, don't you know?
Rebel Girl, F105. That's how we start things over here at the Rebel Scum podcast live streams. My name is James Razile. Joining me as always, but most of the time, Andrew Fantasia. Andrew, what up?
Hello. We're very, very live. And the chat is already lighting up. I took a break from looking at your handsome face and I jumped to the chat and everybody is already gearing up. There was talking before we started. I love this. I love this enthusiasm.
Natural, I like it. People are excited for this little movie that comes out later this month. Andrew Fantasia, that movie is called Cats. Yeah, we both know right. It's all about cats right there. Can't wait for Cats, but no, in all honesty, Rise of Skywalker. Skywalker is rising in 18 days, 17 days, whatever. Boyega is going to get to see it tomorrow. I guess tomorrow is the premiere. I don't know. You just started watching that live stream that they had going on. I have not seen that live stream, but it's exciting. It's going to be an exciting couple of weeks ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's in full gear now. They're doing... The press they've been doing is astonishing. There's been so much press just in the last week alone for this. So they're really like it's the home stretch. I think that's the right word for it. They're in the home stretch, and we have what's the second? We have less than 20 days.
Yeah,
before the end.
It's insane how fast this thing is coming. The end of the Skywalker saga, the end of Star Wars as we know it, essentially. Is here. You know, it's this is it. This is the end of the Skywalker saga. No more Skywalker, presumably, when this is all said and done. If you ask Rural Farm Boy, he will tell you his stance on that, and he believes that it is all ending. We will be joined by Al Schuler, Patreon's own Al Schuler, very soon. Al. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you have yet to subscribe. I'm looking at the chat. We're on a massive delay. I'm trying to pick that up. I don't know what's going on, Andrew. You know how it is. I heard the internet was bad in my neck of the woods. Proud Raylo trash, says Collegiate Misfit. We will be talking to Raylo in just a little bit because that's the hot topic of all of this. But we are in the month of the Rise of Skywalker, which is, I guess, as exciting as it can be right now if you're a Star Wars fan.
What's that? Sorry, I was responding to something there.
Sounds like
what just happened?
We're a month away. This is the most exciting time we can have being Star Wars fans right now.
It's the second most exciting. I think the most exciting is next Sunday when the new episode of Resistance comes out. I'm kidding. It's not that exciting. Have you been keeping up with Resistance?
No, because I'm behind severely, so I'm going to wait, and I'm just going to probably binge it one day and watch it all. I've heard a lot of really good things about season 2, though. Some incredibly amazing things about season 2, and I'm actually very much looking forward to it.
Well, there was an episode, I won't go into detail about it, but there was an episode called Relic Raiders, I think, that everybody was saying, like, this is the episode we've been waiting for on the show. And I watched it, and I was like, I don't see I see why it's appealing, because it looks at things that are very Star Warsy that Resistance usually doesn't look at. But it wasn't an episode where I'm like, ooh, now the story's getting juicy. It was just like, okay, cool. There's a blank in it. Neat. I don't know. That's just me. It's not the most impressive show. It looks beautiful, though. It always looks beautiful week after week.
Good. I don't know. I actually do agree. I do think it is a beautiful looking show, but I haven't had a chance to watch it all. My computer, I think, you know what, to be honest, my computer is really messed up right now. I was trying to send that message earlier and it didn't work. It might be my computer, not my internet, that's causing problems today. Shocking! Live stream issues. What are you gonna do? Rural Farm Boy is wrong. What's he wrong about? He's not even in here right now.
Oh no, yeah, I haven't seen Rural Farm Boy yet. You're right, he's not around. He's not around, but that's okay.
But weather is terrible, I think, everywhere, at least on the East Coast. It seems pretty bad.
Let's all go out and build a snowman live together and make it really, really big. See if we can see each other's snowmen from across the lakes. That probably
You're just such a huge fan of Frozen that you would love that to happen.
All right. Shall we dive into this business?
You are so let's get this all right out of the way. Obviously, when it comes to Raylo, you're not the #1 supporter of Raylo. But before everybody moans or cheers or whatever, explain your stance on it so everybody understands where you're coming from.
I'm not a hater of Raylo and I'm not a lover of Raylo. I'm more interested in other parts of the story, and the point in The Last Jedi where Snoke dies, it's just spoilers, Snoke gets killed and Kylo helps out Rey and they team up and they go all Street Fighter on those Praetorians, and then he's like, come with me now, you're nobody but not to me, and she's like, no, not gonna do that, and then they fight over the saber, they play their tug of war and the saber explodes. I always saw that moment as Lucasfilm or whoever saying this relationship is not going to work. Up until that point, it has been teased and hinted at, and even we've seen snippets of it with the little hand sex thing going on there, and we've been led to believe these two could have something. But I feel like that moment where they overthrow the bad guy, and in our mind, watching a Star Wars movie, seeing that happen, we think of Return of the Jedi and we think, okay, he's turning, he's going to the good side, they're going to be together, that's what's going to happen. But the moment he turns to her and is like, I'm not becoming a good guy, I'm taking over, come take over with me, I think that's the moment where they say, this is not what's going to happen. Like, we tricked you, essentially. He's not going to turn over a new leaf. He's not going to take her hand and throw on some Jedi robes and make his lightsaber blue again and become a...
Well, Andrew's gone. Hold on, everybody. 1 second. Don't know what is going on here. Well, that was weird. Sorry, everybody. We got Andrews back on the line.
I'm back.
No idea what happened there.
I think the Reylo community banded together and kicked me off.
And nobody wants to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. What was the last?
Smoke alarms, probably.
Smoke alarms. Yeah. What was the last thing you all heard me say? That's
right from the start. Just talk about your Raylo.
Oh, geez, right from the start, huh? Okay, I'm gonna look at you instead of the chat so I know if I get kicked off this Hangouts again. But the reason that I don't think Raylo is going to be a thing is because of two big scenes that happened in The Last Jedi, which is that moment where they fight Snoke, and spoilers, they kill him. And Kylo kills his master, and at that moment, we, the audience, are meant to think of Return of the Jedi. We're meant to think of Vader and be like, oh, he's turning against his master. He's a good guy now. Love has won out. But the second they finish their fight with the Praetorians, and Kylo turns to Rey and is like, join me now. Let's rule the galaxy. And she's like, wait, what? I thought you were joining me. And he's like, no, I'm taking over the First Order. Come on, come with me. You're nothing, but not to me. I think that was like Lucasfilm and whoever, everybody involved saying like, psych, we fooled you. This isn't going to be that kind of story. This isn't going to be a rehash of what happened to Vader. I think that he is going to rather like just keep going the way he's been going. And I think that moment was to tell us, the audience, he's not Vader. He's not going to let love guide him to the next step. He's still thinking incorrectly. And I believe that Rey was hurt, obviously, by that. We saw how hurt she was, and she was conflicted and confused, and she didn't know what to feel. And I think that final scene where they're on Crate and he enters the base and it's empty, and she's just sort of looking at him, and then she closes the hatch on the Falcon. I think, again, that was the movie telling us, like, Rey has let go of that. She's let go of the idea that they could be together, because it did tease it and suggest.
See, no, but I think the whole. I think Palpatine's
actions were, they were not the best actions, and I don't see him learning that lesson until the end. And if he learns it by the end and he is still alive, maybe it could be implied that they hook up afterwards, but I just don't feel like there's time for you have to earn romance. You can't just put two pretty people on a screen and be like, they're in love, let's have them kiss now. You have to earn it, otherwise it's not good. It's just not well done. And I don't think it would be earned if he turns to the light anywhere later than like the first 10 minutes of the movie, which could happen. He could turn in the first 10 minutes. That is absolutely possible. Not very likely, but possible.
One thing that makes me very curious on this is the lack of there's Kylo in the mask and Kylo unmasked with his wavy hair. And it's almost it's almost feels like they're two separate characters in this picture.
In this movie?
The one coming up, yeah.
I can kind of see that. I've been trying to gauge, unsuccessfully, because I haven't watched the TV spots, as you mentioned, but I've been trying to gauge how much of the marketing has him in the mask versus how much has him sans mask, and I think it's pretty split down the middle, isn't it? Like, we see the mask a lot during the duel, and then every other time we see him, he's not wearing it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we never see him in the mask when they're fighting each other. He's never wearing that mask.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the screen up. I'm trying to add Al Schuler, so why don't you keep talking there,
Andrew? Okay. Let's see here. Let's see what's going on in the chat here. Kellen says, I just rewatched Attack of the Clones. That felt like a rushed romance. JJ and Ryan set it up much better. You're absolutely right, Kellen. The Attack of the Clones is, as much as I love Attack of the Clones, that is one of the most rushed romances I've ever seen in my life. Wait, that's a lie. Disney and James Bond. But it is a very rushed romance regardless. And it's definitely Rey and Kylo's relationship is much less rushed than what we have seen in Attack of the Clones. But here's the thing about rushing and about time and about earning and everything. Force Awakens and Last Jedi, okay, those were, let's say, 2 weeks worth of time. Episode 7 and 8, that was like, let's say 2 weeks of time. So for those 2 weeks, Rey knew Kylo Ren. Then we have a year, and then we have the Rise of Skywalker. We don't know how much interaction she has had with Kylo Ren in that year. It could be none. It could be every day they were Force Skyping, or it could be absolutely none at all. And if it's absolutely none at all, it would be weird for them to meet up in this movie and, kind of pick up where they left off, because so much time has passed. Like, if you saw your ex after a year, it would be awkward. And I think the farthest thing from your mind would be like, let's be a thing. And they're not even an ex. They're just two people who fought a couple times and blew up a lightsaber. There's that time discrepancy is going to hurt their relationship too, however broken it was at the end of Last Jedi. She spent a year amongst good people. She spent a year among heroic people, and she has now seen the difference between guys who aren't Kylo Ren and guys who are. Because remember, before everything, she spent all her time on Jakku with Unkar Plutt, so she's like, that is not a nice person. Then she just was hanging out with Luke for a while, and she's like, this is a weird old guy who drinks green milk. Kylo was the only guy she knew who was her age, and Finn, rather. I'm forgetting about Finn. But Kylo and Finn were the only guys she knew who was her age and not crazy or evil. So she looks at Kylo and she's like, this guy is a bad dude. He's trying to do evil things. And she looks at Finn and she's like, this is the kind of person I want to be. Finn's a good person. I want to be like that. I want to emulate that. Now she spent a year amongst people like Finn, people like Poe, people like whoever the hell Dominic Monaghan is. I'm sure now she realizes just how good people can be and just how bad in contrast Kylo was. So I think now she's even smarter than she was before. She was already a smart person, but now she's like, now I know, I got swept up in his pretty eyes because he was one of the only two guys I knew who was close to being my age. Now I realize, he was kind of a jerk, and here's all the reasons why. And now I think she knows better. I think that episode 9 Rey is not the young, naive Rey we met on Jakku. She is, I wouldn't be surprised if she's like a general now, or she is something military. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the first scene we see her, some troop is like, Admiral Rey, we have a problem. Like, there's a very good chance of that happening. She's in the war now. She's a grown-up, even though she's probably only like 19 still. She's a grown-up now. And I think that relationship, even though it was interesting, it was not a grown-up relationship. It was purely based on emotion. There was no logic to it. I think now she's trying to think logically because so much is at stake.
Shout out Rural Farm Boy, who just became our newest Patreon member. Guys, if you want to join us on Patreon, patreon.com/Rebel Scum Podcast. We got a lot of really cool things going on. A lot of Patreon supporters, subscribers in it right now. But one of them is joining us on the line. He's been waiting patiently while Andrew stopped talking. His name is, I just cut away from him because that's how I do it. His name is Al Schuler. Al, how's it going over there?
Hey, Al.
What's up, people? How y'all doing?
How's it going, buddy?
Oh, man. Pumped. Ready, dude. We are 3 weeks out.
Oh.
Let's go.
All right. I'm going to jump right in it because you heard Andrew talk, and he talked, and he talked, and he talked.
Yeah.
Raylo, it's coming. And you're friends with Josh over at the Den of Nerds. When the
Oh, yeah.
Last Jedi ended, he called me, and he was jumping and screaming about that being Raylo. Do you think Raylo is still happening? Is it Endgame for the Skywalker saga?
Ooh, I'm going to say I don't think so.
Oh.
I think that, and I think Andrew's kind of going along the lines that I was thinking too, is that I think Rey in this movie is going to kind of be keen on Kylo and how Kylo gets down. So she's going to be like, I don't want anything to do with that. Whereas the emotion, I think, and of the connection and everything else kind of swept her up in episode 7 and 8. She's kind of she's wiser, and she kind of knows and can kind of see it coming. So I think it's going to be, ultimately her making a choice to turn away and deny it herself, which I think is going to be really interesting if that turns out to be what it is. But yeah, I don't think so. I think the Raylos are going to be a little upset.
I'm gonna say this right now, and I'm gonna do. We're gonna have a video with Girls with Sabers in next week. I was gonna say like in a few weeks, but then I realized the movie will have come and gone. So before the movie comes out, we're gonna do a video about Raylo, obviously, and what are we talking about? I want to say this right now because we all know Dark Ray is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Who does not love Dark Ray? Brilliant, probably the most brilliant thing they could have done, with the exception of the fact that. Just like where are the toys? Where are the Dark Ray toys, Dark Ray posters, the Dark Ray merchandise? We need it all.
Dark Ray Band-Aids. I need them.
Yes.
I get hurt a lot.
He does get hurt a lot. Mostly his heart. His heart. The Girls with Sabers saying Raylo is definitely not Romeo and Juliet at all. But here's an idea I have. And look, I am all over the place on every aspect of everything with this film because I haven't read the leaks and I'm really, I don't want to, I just don't feel like going all in on anything yet, but I love everybody's opinions and ideas and anybody that's seen the Girls with Sabers videos on YouTube, you know, the hard work they put into those and there's so much thought put into that and they're great and maybe they sway me sometimes. But what my thought right now is there's this chance that Ray will go to the dark side, obviously. And I almost feel like Kylo / Ben knows that that's not her place. And so in this, kind of because of their connection and maybe love, he has to stop her from doing so. And as a result, they obviously have an epic lightsaber battle because it's amazing. But see, I'm struggling because I don't know. I don't see them ending up together. But that's not to say that they don't long for each other or aren't meant to be with each other. I just don't see them necessarily having the happy ending. And I see the chat going up, but there's a delay. So that's probably about something Andrew mumbled. But I don't necessarily see them having a happy ending, but I do think the Raylo factor will come into play. And I think I'll say this Andrew, you know how I feel. My December 2nd thoughts, because they'll change on the 3rd, are that Raylo, for better or worse, somehow will be what saves the galaxy. Al, tell me I'm wrong. Or right. No, just tell me I'm right. I like to be right.
I mean, I could see that too. And that's the thing is we really don't know. I mean, unless you've read the leaks and you believe that stuff, then you kind of have no idea. But I mean, when you think about it, when I step back and I think about what they could do and which way I could see it going, the honest to goodness truth is after The Last Jedi, it can go in 50 million different directions because it's a question of, does JJ want to retcon the Rey is nobody thing? Does he not? Does he want to make her erase somebody? And how does that play? Because I think that'll play directly into the relationship she has with Kylo and what that connection ultimately ends up representing in terms of the sequel trilogy. So based on that, it's like it could go either way. And I just feel like and shout out to Girls with Sabers, they do dope videos. And I certainly am not raining on the Raylo parade, but I feel like they've almost been setting up that turn. When I go back and I rewatch The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, it's almost as if they've set Rey up to have to resist Kylo, because it's almost like everything seems like it lined up perfect. And then you get the line from the Emperor in the trailer where he's saying your coming together will be your undoing. Now that could be parsed together. That might not be how it actually gets said in the actual movie. Who knows? But if you take it at face value, then it's like, okay, well, he's basically saying that he's been pulling the strings and intending for them to come together. And now I think that it's going to be a situation where whatever part Rey's to play in that, she's going to have this obligation to turn away. Now, whether Kylo kind of influences her turn in terms of saying, you know, this is not your path, that could certainly be the case. Because one of the things that I keep trying to understand in my own head is what's going on with them, because clearly if they're showing so much of the fight scenes between them in the trailers, that's not the climax. Mm-hmm. So my thing is, so what's going on between those two during the course of the movie up to the climax? what do they end up resolving their relationship issues before that, or does that happen kind of as a part of the climax, or where is that going? Because that to me is where it really kind of gives you the most hint. And it just seems like to me it's going to be ultimately whether it's Kylo talking her out, talking her down from Darkseid Rey, or her just being so resistant to that idea that she totally turns away from that and Kylo. But I just see that them setting it up to where she's going to end up just resisting whatever fateful connection they're supposed to have.
Fantasia?
Yeah, the idea of that being her test is a really cool idea, Al. Like she has to, like Luke had to have that whole thing where it's like, this is my father, I can't kill him, whatever. Like he had his own test, Anakin had his own test. Everybody's got their tests, and the Force kind of puts you through these paces. For Rey to have that test where it's like, I might have feelings for this person, but I have to understand that we have all done it. Every human being has done it where it's like, wow, that person, like, I think I kind of, got a crush going on here. I want to ask them out. And everybody's like, they are wrong for you. They are a bad influence. They are not treating you with respect. And you're just like, but I don't care. They make me smile. We have to get over that. That is a huge part of growing up, of life. Everybody goes through that. And I think that is a very powerful test to put this woman through, to put her, like, to essentially say, you have been alone your whole life. Here's a chance to be with somebody. And I think she has to look at it as not like, she has to understand that just because I'm not with a person doesn't mean I'm alone. Just because I don't have a boyfriend or a husband doesn't mean I'm alone. And I think that there is a big fear of being alone, and we equate it with relationships. We equate it with, if I'm not in a relationship, I have failed. If I'm not in a relationship, I have done something wrong, and that's on me. That's not the case. It's different for every person, and every person needs to make peace with themselves. And once you've made peace with yourself, you are never alone. You're one with the Force. And I think that being her test would be beautiful. It would be dope. I would love to see that. So I hope you're right on the money, Al.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about it is it really does kind of put her in this position to where it makes her kind of have to face these things head on. So it's like the conflict between her and Kylo, there's no denying that connection. And it's obvious from kind of what we've seen in the trailers, they're still going to have this Force Skype thing going on to some degree. So they're still going to have to deal with each other one way or the other. And the fact that she's not going to be able to run from that, and that could tie into what Palpatine's overall plan has been from the beginning, to me, that's the thing that I think really could end up redeeming Rey, at least for me, in terms of her story, her arc, is the fact that now we get to the point where she's basically in episode 9 hitting every single challenge to a degree that Luke did in the original trilogy. It's just all kind of culminating with us realizing that oh snap moment with like what we had between Vader and Luke with the finding out that Vader was his father. We found that out in episode 5, whereas whatever the big reveal will be, we're going to find that out in 9. And then we're also going to get the resolution of it in the same movie. So we'll know by the end of the movie. But that to me is super dope, because that's going to be kind of the actual test for Rey, kind of like what Andrew said. So yeah, I can't wait, man. I cannot wait.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
We're only going to wait 17 more days to watch this freaking thing play out. It's going to be awesome. Look, I don't know if I don't think anyone's ever referred to me as a Raylo, and I don't think I am necessarily a Raylo, but I love all the ideas surrounding it. And the bottom line with Star Wars and the Skywalker saga as a whole is when the day needs to be saved, when the galaxy needs to be saved, it comes down to love. Love is what saved Vader. Ultimately, Luke versus Vader is what saved him. It also is obsessive love is what turned Anakin to the dark side. And, there's a lot of talk about Kylo, like, is he reverse Anakin? Is he Vader reverse Vader? Are we going backwards with that? And if we are, and you would have to think that love would if it's reverse Anakin, love would have to save Kylo, and if it's reverse Vader, love would have to save Ben. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think so. You pulled some Inception on my brain right there, but I think
I'm like, wait, what?
Oh my God! Wait. So in this layer of the dream, we are in 7 hours of sleep, but on this one, we are in a year of sleep. Okay, we got this. Tom Hardy, go blow something up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
so Leo is Snoke, is what you're saying.
Leo is.
Okay, that makes
But
sense.
love is what conquers all in the Skywalker saga. Love is what saves the day. It's always been about love.
Yeah, and I think I just keep going back to the Last Jedi and the fact that Rose kind of alluded to it and almost overtly stated it at the end of the movie. So that's how we're gonna win. Not fighting what we hate, but saving what we love. And like you said, that's been Star Wars from day one. Is it hasn't been about necessarily confronting your enemy and dealing with your enemy so much as it has been about kind of redemption and saving a loved one or somebody that you care about. And you see kind of in the prequel trilogy, like you said, the reverse of that, or the negative side of that with Anakin, because he cared so much that there was no lengths he wouldn't go to save these people he cared about, not taking time to realize that, this could have been some kind of a plot that the Emperor was playing him the whole time. But with Rey and with Ben, it's funny because we're seeing the kind of manifestation of that from both of them, or we could potentially, because it may ultimately be kind of like what you said. Ben may or Kylo may turn around and say, you know what, Rey, I can't let you go down this path. This is not for you, because of this connection that he has with her that could turn out to be love. And then the same thing for Rey, because of her, affinity or her connection to Kylo, she feels this need to redeem him somehow. So it could be a thing where they end up saving each other, which could be Raylo, maybe. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and that is a wonderful example of a Raylo that, their relationship can be super powerful and super Raylo without necessarily being a romance. Like, we can have that too. That's also an option that's on the table. I mean, the friendships that are forged in Star Wars and the relationships that are forged are also unique. There's one of the most beautiful moments in recent Star Wars memory was towards the end of Jedi Fallen Order. And this isn't a spoiler. I'm not going to spoil anything in the plot if people haven't made it to the end of that game yet. But, there's that little droid BD-1 who hangs out on Cal's shoulder, and he's with him for the game. And there's a point at the end of the game where you're getting to what's going to be like the final boss area, more or less. And Cal is having a dialogue with BD-1, and you can tell Cal is afraid. He's not sure if he's going to make it out alive. And he just says, like, hey, BD-1. And BD-1's like, yeah, boo, boo, boo. And Cal's like, thank you for being my friend. And then, like, he just psychs himself up and goes for the end of the game. And it's so beautiful. Like, what a beautiful thing to say, to have a character say to another character, like, thank you for being my friend. And if what we've seen in these trailers is any indication, we're going to get a lot of that, particularly with people like C-3PO, maybe with Poe, and like it's gonna hit us right in the feels.
Oh yeah. That's going to be, for me, the biggest thing for me is going to be watching kind of those final goodbyes and realizing that this thing is really actually coming to a close. Like this saga that we've known and that has spawned all of this material and all of these crazy dope toys, is this chapter of it's closing. Like, this era is going to be done. And it's like, how can you not, as a fan, be pumped for that? And how is that not going to evoke some kind of emotion? Like, you're not going to sit in that movie and just go, it was man, unless if you were really that invested, because these are characters that like we've all grown up with and that we've passed on to our children. And it's like, watching that, I mean, even in the trailer with C-3PO saying he was taking the last look at his friends, like, I was at home, like, with my daughter, like, oh man, see, look, they can't do this to me already. But dude, yeah, it's amazing, man, and it's gonna be a crazy ride. But there's gonna be a lot of that, I think.
Yeah, I can't wait. You got to talk over in the chat. They're talking about, killing off the Skywalkers and how could you just throw away that money, Disney? Like, Skywalkers could just print money on their own. And what about the thought that Kylo Ren doesn't die, and everybody's like redemption. But I think a lot of people, I would say the majority of people are guessing that Kylo Ren's dead meat at the end of this trilogy, that he's going to somehow perish, because that's what happens to bad guys. They die. So let's do a quick Never Tell Me the Odds right now. Fantasia, I'll start with you. We'll give Al a breather and just let him think, because he's the guest here. We'll let him think. Never Tell Me the Odds. Kylo Ren dies in The Rise of Skywalker.
86%.
See, you're high.
Yeah.
And we just lost 17 subscribers. Right. Al, what about you?
I'm going to say 93%, but from a certain point of view.
I think I'm on your point of view. I'm going to say Kylo Ren dies 93.1%, but Ben Solo lives.
Oh,
That's where I'll go. Where were you going with yours, Al?
Same exact place. Same exact place.
So we both agree. Here's what I think, that Kylo Ren's going to die. Everyone will think he's dead, but we'll find out that Ben Solo is living on a la Obi-Wan somewhere in the galaxy.
Yes.
Yeah. That's so you
Cue the Disney Plus Kylo Ren series.
And I'm in. By the way, it's Cyber Monday. You can get your year subscription for $60 for Disney Plus.
oh,
That's a big
yes.
screw you from Disney to everybody that bought it day one. They're like,
Yeah. Thanks, Disney.
Yeah.
It's okay. Just never raise your prices like Netflix, and we'll get along just fine.
Yeah, that's not happening. Barry Brophy's full Brock. Ben Solo lives. Kylo dies. Ben survives. Dale Erdman. Barry Brophy 75. I don't know if Ben lives, says Happily Ever Liqueur. Where are we? The chat's just moving.
There's going to be a scene where somebody in the movie says, Kylo Ren does not survive, and then Ben is going to say, but I do.
But I do. Happy Liquor. If that happens, James, I completely lose control. If Kylo redeems himself, I'm great with Rey and Ben getting together. Continue the bloodlines. Here's a question. Here's actually an honest question, and maybe the chat could talk about this too. But I'll start with you guys. Kylo Ren's redemption is like, because we were talking about the mask earlier, and then people were saying, what if the mask is possessed? And I've been hearing a lot about the mask is possessed. If Kylo Ren has been manipulated by Snoke and by maybe Palpatine and by all these things, and he thought his uncle was trying to kill him, and his dad was a deadbeat dad, and his mom was a politician that he never really wasn't around with, obviously, and then he kills his father because it's something he felt like he had to do. But he felt like he had to do it, and we're going to learn more about him, obviously, in these Kylo Ren comic books that are dropping really soon now. This is crazy. But in the one description, it said that he had to leave, and the only person he could trust, the only man in the galaxy he could trust was Snoke.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, is it hard to forgive Ben Solo for killing his father if he was, like, and we know the dark side's not more powerful, but it's easier, and it's definitely it's more alluring, and it's tricky, and it's sly, and it could manipulate you into going down that path. Is it easier to forgive Ben Solo when you start to learn all of these details, and maybe it's what he thought, it wasn't anything he necessarily wanted, but it was like Vader, right? Like Vader and Anakin, when CVP says, henceforth you shall be known as Darth. Like, in that moment, Anakin's dead, right? So when Anakin comes back to the light in Return of the Jedi, I don't know, when I was a kid, I'm like, well, he's back. We're good. Everything's happy. Okay. But he killed little kids. Kylo killed his dad, who was a deadbeat dad. Probably wanted to anyway. But he kills his dad. And then he's like, but was that Ben Solo, or was that just Kylo Ren who was being manipulated by all of these dark side beings, smothering him, but making him feel wanted?
Is this question for me or for Al?
Both of you. Start with you, Andrew. Your camera's up right now.
I think the answer to that question depends on something we haven't really seen yet. It depends on what does the First Order do now that Kylo's in charge. We don't know what they got up to during that year. We saw snippets in like some books and stuff, but we don't know what their game plan is now that he is in charge. I'm sure we're going to find out in this movie what their plan is. because the Han Solo thing notwithstanding, and attacking the Resistance fleet notwithstanding, I think the moment where Ben, if he had any shred of decency, should have spoken up, is when they're like, hey, you Starkiller base and blow up 9 planets. I think that's when even like a fractionally good person would have been like, hold on. The fact that he didn't oppose that in any way that we have seen, I'm like, okay, maybe the only reason I can think of that he would just stand there and let that happen is because he's not the boss, because Snoke calls the shots. Now he's the boss. So if they're doing stuff that is genocidal and that is, taking over planets and basically enslaving whoever lives on the planets, if they're doing stuff that is par for the course for the First Order and the Empire, then at that point I would say, okay, Kylo, you are in charge. You have the ability now to say, hey, First Order, let's not be dicks. If you're not saying let's not be dicks, then why are you like? There's no Ben in there anymore. There's no Ben who's struggling with like, well, maybe this is the right choice. No, if you're enslaving a planet or blowing up a planet, you're not making the right choice. There is no universe where you're doing that for a greater good.
Al?
Yeah, I think with the way that I look at it, it's really kind of they're one and the same. So I don't necessarily look at it as, absolving Ben or Kylo because he was manipulated. Like the fact that he was manipulated kind of gives us reason and context behind him having to murder Han Solo, but that's still an act that he was responsible for. So at the end of it, and I think that's kind of one of the things that intrigues me about the sequel trilogy is this subtle kind of discussion into morality and good, what is true good versus evil, and how do you view a person based off of those acts. And it's really interesting because you take a person like Dark or the concept of Dark Rey, right? If you go down the rabbit hole and let's say she ends up being some kind of relative of Palpatine's or something like that, or she does end up going evil, well, does that mean now that everything that she did up to that point is null and void because now she's and it's kind of the same thing as Anakin. I mean, from the point that he murdered or became Darth Vader and murdered younglings, he was, terrible. He was horrible. But what about all of the deeds that Anakin did as a Jedi Knight? All of the missions he went on, all of the planets that he helped to liberate and things like that. Like, though both of those things kind of have to be weighed when you're evaluating a person, I think. And I think that's kind of what one of the really intriguing points of the sequel trilogy has been, is this idea of, well, are you inherently good or inherently evil, or is it a choice? Because and that's kind of the first thing we get introduced to in The Force Awakens with Finn. You see this stormtrooper who's struggling with the idea of being a stormtrooper, and then it eventually defects. So he made a choice. And so with Ben, Kylo, I feel like, okay, well, yeah, you were manipulated by Snoke, but you made a choice to kill Han Solo on that bridge. You might have felt it was necessary, but it's still an act that you portrayed or that you took part in, and so you have to answer for that. And it doesn't mean that makes him inherently evil and you can't be redeemed from that point. But I don't think you can just sweep that under the rug and go, oh yeah, that was because he was manipulated. No, that's something that you have to actually address. And there has to be some type of reconciliation kind of as a human being, if you want to take it all the way down that rabbit hole. But no, I don't. For me, I have to look at it, and treat it on face value as what it was, which, dude, you killed your dad, like point blank period.
Yeah, Girls with Sabers brought up in the chat that there was a theories. I haven't seen them in a while, but that Han turned the saber on his own. I never really subscribed to that one because I'm pretty sure in the movie he turns it on. Kylo turns it on. But I mean, look, they could go back and retcon that if they want. They could say, oh no, maybe that was what JJ wanted, and they just shot it in a way to show the perception of Rey and Finn and Chewie, right? We don't know. But the thing with Kylo is Rey doesn't believe he could be. I think by the time The Last Jedi ends, Rey doesn't think he could come back to the light. During the whole movie, she's like, he could come back. We're going to get him back. We're going to bring him back. And then by the end of it, she's, like Andrew said, she's pretty much, I think she's given up on that. That being said, plot points could happen in this movie that could bring her back. That could remind her that is not just Kylo Ren, that is also Ben Solo. That Ben Solo lives behind there. It's going to be curious to see what is going on. Like Andrew said, also, like, how is he conducting the First Order? We see, Andrew, plug your ears for a second. Yeah, we see that. Hold on, Andrew. Wait, Andrew. When I go, like, we see a planet blow up or something, right, in the TV spot, right? Spoilers for the TV spot, guys. Sorry about that. But Al, you've seen that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that him? Is that Hux? Is that General Pride? Is that SheVP? I don't know. That speaks to your point, what you're saying about you have hero. Okay, Andrew. Andrew can come back. Yeah, so that part in the trailer when Rey says, "I am a Skywalker."
Oh, I love that part.
And now everybody hates what I just said.
And Babu Frick says, "Me too."
And then that's when the hood comes down and we see Jar Jar, and he says, "Well, then it's treason."
But in all honesty, though, like it depends on how Kylo's running it, because I think Rey could easily see the light inside Ben, because I think that there is light inside Ben, even at the end of that movie. He hates his uncle with a passion, though. He hates him. But he saw his uncle try to kill him. I don't know, like, how many of us have seen our uncles try to kill us with a lightsaber that he was teaching us with?
True. One of the things I always thought was interesting with Kylo is this concept of, is it really Luke that he despises as much as it is the mystique of the Skywalker legacy?
Mm-hmm.
And is he rejecting Luke, or is he rejecting this idea that as a Skywalker, or as a descendant of the Skywalker bloodline, that he's supposed to take this mantle up? Because I always wondered, when Luke took him to train him, what was the understanding, or what was Luke's goal? Was this, I'm training the next chosen one to bring balance, or is this, my nephew's force sensitive, I want to make sure that he becomes the best Jedi that he can? Because to me, what really makes it interesting for me is, it to me seems like in episode 8, Kylo just doesn't want anything to do with any of it. He doesn't want anything to do with anything. He doesn't want to be a Sith. He doesn't want to be a Jedi. He wants to kind of pave his own way. And so I looked at kind of his conflict with Luke, not so much as my uncle tried to kill me, as much as it was, here's Luke trying to stand for this thing that he absolutely despises, which is this idea of this Jedi being able to kind of do essentially whatever he wants, or come in and save the day. And Kylo just wanting to have none of it, because it's kind of that whiny kid. It's like, it's my toy and it's my turn now. I'm going to play the way I want to play. And that to me was really interesting. And I think really introduces the question of just how ticked off at Luke is Ben Solo.
Yeah. And I think the point that you bring up, Al, I think that is something that the reason why he says he understands her in this trailer, I think that's the reason right there. Because one thing that we haven't gotten a clear picture of yet, and I think this comic is going to do it, is we don't know the difference between Ben Solo before he found out his grandfather is Darth Vader and Ben Solo after. Mm-hmm. We know Leia made that message or whatever, telling him like, "Hey, sit down, son, put on some coffee." We don't know how that affected him, what he was like
right
after. But if I'm right, and I always am, in that episode 9, Rey is going to be like, "Oh, I'm Rey Natasha Palpatine. I just learned this." That's when he's going to step forward and he's going to be like, "Hey, you just found out that your grandfather or whoever was one of the worst people in the galaxy. Guess what? I know how that feels." I think that's when he's going to step forward and be like, nobody knows what it's like to be you. Your Resistance friends are all looking at you weird now because Palpatine was your grandpappy, whatever. They don't understand you, but I do.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, that's where I think that connection, that's where I think he's going to try to reach out and make that connection. And I think finding out what he was like before that and how that news affected him, that's going to make a big difference in whether or not Ben is still in there somewhere.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that one.
Ben Solo dies, Kylo Ren dies, Lando dies, Hux dies, General Pride dies, Leia dies, Luke's already dead, Jar Jar dies, Chewie dies, Poe dies, Finn dies, Janna dies, Zoe Bliss lives, and that's the end of the movie. That's how the
Roll
movie
credit.
ends. Everyone dies but Zoe Bliss. Next trilogy is the Bliss Trio. That's what it's called. This Bliss
The
Trilogy.
Bliss Trio.
I'm just reading the chat now, but you're forgetting the intimacy started with the interrogation scene. Yeah, we're gonna wrap up soon, but let's go into that interrogation scene. Something that when I first saw it, this was not what crossed my mind whatsoever. But the interrogation scene is something that Chris Terrio has brought up, and Ryan Johnson was like, J.J. Abrams really played off this the relationship between Rey and Kylo a lot in The Force Awakens, which it's. I can only speak for myself, was not something on the forefront of my mind going when I watched it. And I'm just being honest, it wasn't. And then Misconduct actually was like, James, you're an idiot. And so I started to look at it from that perspective. And Ryan Johnson obviously played on that. And Chris Terrio, in an interview, brought up that interrogation scene. So, Al, did Rey fall in love? No, did Kylo put memories into Rey's mind that she was in love with him in that scene? Do you buy that though? Was that on the forefront of your mind, that interrogation scene from The Force Awakens? Did you see that right away?
Yeah, so I mean, when I first saw the first Force Awakens, I immediately figured there was something between those two on a romantic level, because it just seemed like there was this chemistry between the two of them. And it was the interrogation scene for me. I did not at one bit cross my mind the idea of him planting any memories into her mind. That was, for me, what I gathered from it of watching it was that there was something that happened, or that they felt between them. And we now know, I think, that's kind of the melding of their minds, whether that was Snoke or Palpatine through Snoke, or however it ends up playing out. But I think that's what got it for me, because it was what really kind of the line that got me in that whole scene was when he tells her, "Don't be afraid, I feel it too." To me, that was like, okay, well, now they're feeling something that neither one of them were expecting, because it doesn't seem like Kylo was prepared for that either, but it didn't necessarily throw him off. Like, it wasn't something that, gave him any cause for alarm or anything like that. But that told me that there was something with those two. And then, with the fight at the end where he's basically trying to recruit her and he's telling her she needs a teacher, it just felt like they were setting this up to be a story of these two, quote unquote, I don't want to say star-crossed lovers, but like these two people who, whether it was fate or the Force or whatever, brought them together, that there was going to be something there. And I initially thought it was going to be a romantic thing. After watching The Last Jedi, I kind of backed off of that a little bit, because I felt like Disney Lucasfilm was setting us up for a swerve. It seemed like everything was kind of lining up for Raylo to be Endgame, and just me kind of being the cynical person that I am, I was immediately expecting, after seeing The Last Jedi, oh yeah, that's not going to happen now. It was too obvious in The Last Jedi, and for it to have played out the way that it played out, I just didn't see a way that at the end of the trilogy, those two would end up together.
Andrew, any thoughts on that?
In terms of the interrogation scene, I always saw it as, for the first time in a long time, Kylo met somebody as strong or probably stronger in the Force than him, and I think that freaked him out. I think that was the moment of, Kylo has spent however long he's been being Kylo Ren, he has spent it being like, I'm one of the most powerful dudes in the galaxy. Then all of a sudden he's like pushing on this girl, and he pushes on a lot of people. We saw him push on Poe Dameron earlier in the movie, sitting in the same chair that Rey was and everything. Now he's pushing on this girl, and for the first time in however many years, she's pushing back. Somebody's pushing back at Kylo. And I always saw that scene as him losing his way, because the dark side's all about promising power. It's all about like, ooh, look how strong you can be. Look how much you can mess with people. Look how much you can stand up to people. And he got used to that power. one of the most powerful people in the galaxy, and certainly in the First Order too. And all of a sudden, somebody who is like this scrawny kid from a junkyard planet who, barely knows anything about the way the galaxy is working, she's pushing back. That is a huge crush to his dark side ego. And I think that's where he starts to realize, like, oh, the dark side promised me all these things, but it's not 100% true, because there's another person with power and she just beat me. I never saw that interrogation as like them being like, ooh, we have a connection now. I saw it as being like the connection stuff. I always saw it in The Last Jedi with the Skype thing, but with the interrogation, I always saw it as just Kylo is thrown for a loop because he's reminded that he's not the only person in the universe with power.
I'll say this on the Raylo front. Just watch When Harry Met Sally.
That's right.
You know what's really curious though is there was I think in the novelization of The Force Awakens and the Lego game, I've brought this up numerous times, is when Kylo says, "It is you." Has that line just been forgotten and neglected because it's not in the movie, or are we ever going to get an answer to that, to why Kylo said that, why he would know who she is?
I don't know if we'll get a direct answer to it, but I think what it could, the easy way to explain that would be that there was a rumor of this child, this force sensitive child that had this baby dark side presence or something like that. I think, and that's always been kind of a question for me, is how was it that everyone knew who this girl was, or that it raised so many antennas when this girl showed up? Because it seemed like even when Snoke was telling Kylo, if she's as strong as he's saying, then bring her to him, that didn't seem like ooh, here's my newest puppet. Like that was like he has an idea of who she might be. And the same thing with Kylo when he first hears of her and he's like, what girl? They know who she is somehow. And I think the way that gets explained is if they come out and they say Palpatine's been pulling the strings from day one, then somehow there was Snoke had knowledge that there could be, if we're right, or if Andrew's right about her being, a grandchild of the Emperor's, then maybe Snoke and a select few others knew that Palpatine had offspring, and that this could potentially be one of them, or that there was a legend or a rumor that there was offspring of Palpatine out in the universe, and maybe her emergence kind of reignited that whole intrigue. But yeah, I definitely excuse me, I definitely feel like I don't necessarily think they'll answer that right out in episode 9, but that's the easiest way I think you can I think they'll infer it, is pretty much how I see it going down.
Andrew?
Sorry, remind me on the question. I'm just keeping up with the chat here, and I forgot your question, James.
It is you.
It is me. Oh, it is me. Yeah, I always saw that as a gray area because of that book discrepancy situation. Is it canon?
So
not
weird.
canon? I pretty much have the same train of thought as Al, where because I'm riding on the Rey Natasha Palpatine train, that it's a matter of like there were whispers, there were rumors that there's an offspring or a clone or whatever, that something Palpatine did, and there's a person, and it's part of Palpatine's plan, and Kylo knows that this person exists but doesn't really know what they look like, whatever, and meeting her verified that for him, and he's like, oh snap, it's you.
I've got one final thought to say before we say goodbye. Well, if Girls Will Sabers felt an awakening in the Force, Rey was that awakening. I agree. I will say this right now to wrap it up. Rey is the grandchild or some child of GVP Palpatine. She falls in love with Kylo Ren, who is a Skywalker. And GVP Palpatine created the Skywalkers. Good night, everybody. All right, guys, thanks so much for having this talk. The chat was on fire tonight. Thanks everybody for chatting. That was phenomenal. Thanks guys for talking in there. Some great stuff. I'm gonna have to go back and read the chat again because it was so much fun. Everybody's got different viewpoint on Raylo on this whole thing, and it's awesome to hear, and I'm glad everybody, I think, was respectful in the chat of everybody else's opinions, which is very important. Again, I'll be talking with Girls with Sabers on this topic again. Next week it'll be up for everybody to watch because that's going to be a lot of fun. And then on 2 weeks, we're going to watch this. Is it 2 weeks? 2 weeks. We're going to watch this movie, and we're going to come back here and we're going to say, who knows what we're going to say. I think Al said that we'll be like, ugh, we're going to have a lot to say, and we're going to have a lot of fun talking about it, digesting it, and just having a great time. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Al, do you want to plug anything?
I'll do a solid for Josh. Josh, you owe me. Den of Nerds. Check him out.
Andrew, what about you? You got a book?
I'd also like to plug the Den of Nerds. My books aren't next to me right now. I had to move them because we're trying to put the tree up, so my book table is not here anymore. But yes, my book Side Scroller is on Amazon, Kindle, and paperback, whichever you prefer. Get paperback, it's better, and I get more money. Wait, did I say that out loud? But yeah, it's called Side Scroller, and it's a lot of fun. Check it out.
And everybody jump over to the Med2 YouTube channel. It's Michael's YouTube channel. Check that out. 8:30 is going live. And also get Heidi's books. Check us out, Heidi's books on Lulu.com and Dryden. Look for those 3 right here. And until next time, may the force of others be Raylo.
Ooh, I like that.